Hey girls, Maria Menounos here, author of the Every Girl's Guide to Life. Want to know my best tips and secrets for organization, travel, weight loss, beauty, fashion, and everything else in between? Go to bing.com/Maria and pick up my new book, The Every Girl's Guide to Life.
You're listening to the AfterBuzz TV network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Keith Johnson.
From the AfterBuzz Studios in Los Angeles, California, and streaming live on Ustream, this is AfterBuzz TV for The Killing. Tonight's host is Paul Ashton. Joining Paul will be AfterBuzz co-hosts Katie Page and Catherine Tulick. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest The Killing news and gossip. If you'd like to buzz in on tonight's show, you can buzz us at 424-256-1729. That's 424-256-1729. And now, picking up where the show leaves off and the buzz continues, Paul Ashton.
Thank you very much, Sir Richard Wentworth. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to AfterBuzz TV for The Killing, Season 1, Episode 8, entitled Stonewalled. I'm Paul Ashton. Hi to you out there in Ustream land, and hello to all our podcasters. I'm here tonight with Katie Page, the one, the only, and of course, DJ Jess over in the Perspex booth. Thanks to everyone for joining us tonight. Before we get right into it, of course, just remember, Maria Menounos, Every Girl's Guide to Life, out there in the bookstores right now. Top 10 New York Times bestseller. Need we say more? We also wanted to, before we get stuck into it, have a word to you about AfterBuzz TV, because we do all these podcasts and these Ustreams every week, and we haven't always said a whole lot about the way it works, because we're a relatively new media platform, etc., etc. But the main thing to know is that we're all here on our own time. We're all here because we just love to do it. Kevin, Maria, Phil, and Jess are all here, just have set it all up, and everyone comes in and donates their time. And all we ask for those of you out there listening or watching in Ustream land is to tell all your friends about AfterBuzz TV, forward on the links for the AfterBuzz. It's ustream.tv/AfterBuzzTV. Host us on your Facebook page. Send the links around. Let everyone else know that we're here. If you enjoy the shows and the podcast, tell them that you can find us on iTunes, etc. And spread the good word, because the more the merrier as far as we're concerned. Anyway, let's get into Day 8 of The Killing. Stonewalled was the title, and it really did feel like everyone got stonewalled tonight. I felt like it was a very interior episode that focused in on what was like really going on inside of our lead characters. That the case didn't really move on too far. We got a couple of new clues, but it was really kind of, we're at episode 8 of 13, so it's it just sort of past the midpoint. It's a percolation period. Obviously, we're about to start getting, I think, a lot more details of the case for that to start winding up. But I felt like this was an amazingly structured episode. At the beginning, there was like a Bunsen burner under everyone. Everyone was like simmering and losing control of their grasp on their own reality. In the midpoint, just after the midpoint, 2/3 of the way through about where we are right now at episode 8, we had this strange kind of bubble where it was all of a sudden we were talking about forgiveness in two different like story plots, and then all of a sudden actions were taken out the other side of this bubbling, and everything kind of broke loose.
Okay, before we get into that, which I thought I was gonna have a chance, but that was a very long sentence.
Yes, all 5.
We did not talk about Day 7. We were not here for Day 7.
We missed Day 7.
We missed
I
Day
was so excited to talk about Day 8 that I forgot about the fact.
So we'll do a real quick rundown of Day 7.
Thank you.
So again, Sarah missed her flight again. I just lost myself in my ear.
Don't worry about that.
I keep touching the thing.
Yeah, don't touch it. Just keep talking because we can hear you.
Oh, good. Okay, Sarah missed her flight again, and this apparently was the final straw for Rick, because he's not he's now not answering the phone. We saw this continue into day 8, but even in day 7, he wasn't answering his phone. And she appeared to have missed the flight. It seemed like the wedding was imminent. I don't know if you.
Well, there was
got
something
that
coming
sense.
on the Sunday. It was like a family gathering.
Right, there was something.
Yeah, that they
like
it was a big barbecue that they were all supposed to go to.
Right.
And that she was going to make. She really wanted to make, and then they just missed boarding the flight. They actually got there, but missed it.
Got there. They missed boarding the flight, and Jack seems to be a good sport about all of this, but as we'll find out in episode 8, that he's being has been more affected by all of this than
Yeah, I mean, he got to go to a party he wanted to go to, so that was kind of good for him.
But Reggie did sit Sarah down in the last episode and sort of say, you have to think about what you're doing to your kid here. You're going, you're not going. You care about this person, maybe you don't care. I mean, what does he think? He's looking at it. He's just a kid. If you wanted to go, you'd be there.
And interesting that one of Jack's earliest quotes tonight, just because the time's right to mention it, he said, "Let me guess, he kind of knows you don't really want to go." Too.
Right. Kids are very astute in that way. The other thing that happened was that the mayor cut funding for the Seattle All-Stars, and Darren made a very, very passionate speech to all of them that was essentially like, look, I'm going to make a final plea just to show you guys how much I care, but I also know you're all dicks and you're going to cut the funding anyway.
Yes, which they did.
They froze the assets is what they did, not cut funding. They froze the assets. So for these 1,500 kids or so that count on this after-school program, so that they're not on the streets, so that they're not going home to bad houses maybe, so that they're not going home where there are no parents, whatever they're doing in this after-school program, it's really important, obviously, to the Seattle youth and important to Darren. They're not going anymore because the funding's been cut.
Yeah, and the mayor was, of course, behind that.
Right. The mayor did it. The mayor did it. He called the entire meeting and messed with them. He has
everyone in
So that was sort
pocket.
of, as we'll see, that was kind of a final straw for Darren. He was not... He's not having it this episode.
Yes, that's actually important too. That's really important to reference in terms of the way that he behaves
in this episode. There's a lot, There's a lot in terms of that Bunsen burner that you're talking about. There's sort of like he's boiling.
There was a real shift in his journey tonight.
Yeah.
A real shift.
And we'll talk about that. The other thing that happened was Mitch and Stan had this sort of moment where it looked like maybe they were going to have sex.
Yeah, they were going to hook up. They were going to do the kind of the let's make another one because we lost one or something,
Well, or whatever it was.
Whatever
They were going to
urges.
reconnect. I mean, and we have to remember it's only been day 7, so I don't think
it's a week.
It's been a week, right? In the 7th episode, and so they were going to reconnect and have and in my mind it had felt like it had been so long that I was sort of like rooting for them really hard, and then like the kid gets in bed in the middle of them, and I was like, God, that's so awkward. He needs you in the boner, whatever. So. The kid ruined the moment, but there was sort of a nice family little thing. And then he goes to try it again later, and Mitch is like, can't do it. Yeah. She just cannot physically get to that, whatever. Then, so then there's this whole thing where we find out about this character, Mohammed, having the key to Chrissy and Bennett's house. And I know her name's not Chrissy.
Amber.
Whatever. It's Chrissy from Growing Pains.
Right.
Amber, Amber, and I have Chrissy written all over everything. Like I can't get on board with her new name. I'm sorry.
Oh well.
Anyway, she can't lift anything.
No, so there's no way that she could have been involved.
The peeping Tom neighbor thought, okay, maybe it was her, but no way she could have been involved. She informs them about this Muhammad character, so they go over to the mosque, because they get she steals the Quran from their house.
Yes.
That's illegal in some way.
I don't know that Allah would be all that happy about it.
Okay, well, we won't get into it.
I don't want to commit any mortal sins myself.
Here's what I don't understand,
I should be careful what I say.
Yeah, no one notices potentially that she's stolen this thing from their house. She just walks out with the Quran, finds the address of the mosque, goes there with Holder. They get an anonymous tip, so they go over to this meatpacking place, which the entire thing is just so eerie, right? Like, how bad was the suspense in that? And it was like nothing was happening, but everything was happening.
There are meat hooks everywhere. You put meat hooks up everywhere and things start getting tense.
Yeah, and it was like they had these enormous... It wasn't even one of those things where they always... You notice on crime shows, like, there's never a light anywhere, and they always have to use their flashlights?
Yes.
Like, just constantly, like, turn on the light. Like, there's no reason. But in this, there were fluorescent lights, and the suspense was still, like just suffocating to me. Then they knock the padlock off that door and go in, and they find and then they're held up by the FBI, and that's where we
That's
start
where
off.
we said goodbye and where we said hello
Right.
tonight. And so let's
So
like
day 8.
yeah, let's enter at that point because we opened on this lovely kind of tilted perspective of Sarah Linden lying on the ground, just taking and you see what kind of
Just clocking everything.
in the face of whatever's going on, and you can tell like how we really did see more of her obsession with her work, and the various addictions that all of these people have in their lives,
get into that.
and this is hers, and she clocks some things, and that pink T-shirt had to be important. It felt like that right from the start.
And it was eerie too, just
Extremely
seeing all
eerie.
those like child toys and pink
Well,
girl
yeah.
things.
Immediately you start thinking, okay, what are the belongings of a child doing in a padlocked room inside a meat?
Yeah, and there were hooks in that room too. I mean, it was just it was like a refrigerator.
So you feel like there's something extremely dodgy going on.
Sure.
And so
That's where we find out that this is now the focus of an FBI investigation involving terrorism. So a little bit disappointing for me, I have to say, because I was a little disappointed that they went that route, only because, yes, it's very topical. Everyone's doing terrorist plots and whatnot. But I loved the story the way it was, and
you feel like it overcomplicates it?
It's not that it overcomplicates it. I think it cheapens it. Like, I was loving the emotional...
dilutes it?
Yes, it dilutes it.
Yeah.
Yes. I love the emotional backstory. I love all the stuff that's going on. I love the idea that I didn't love this idea, but it could happen, and it felt so realistic. And now it's like, now they're linking it to this bigger terrorist plot, and it just feels I feel like,
but what didn't waver is Sarah Linden's focus on
the
girl. And I ultimately think that is, my gut feeling, I know maybe proved wrong, is that the series will ultimately go back there. I feel like this is more distraction. This is more loud noise for the media within the story, and I really don't feel like the terrorism is going to have anything to do with the death and the murder of Rosie Larson.
I don't like we were saying, it felt like we were getting all these interior stories.
Yeah.
But it also felt like in the larger picture there was this jarring move to this other, like, all of a sudden I'm trying to learn facts about a terrorist plot that I don't really care about because I don't want to know. I understand if it involves, like, trafficking girls or...
Yeah.
There's some aspect
There's something
of that.
with that. We're talking passports. Ahmed's on the phone, and and maybe they're just trying to get.
But it is true that Sarah is continuing her focus. She's like, it has nothing to do with Rosie.
And the other reason why why I think it's valuable is in terms of that the political story,
right?
And the way that it's going to feed into that,
right.
and the way that it compromises Richmond even more and pushes him into the dirt even more.
Right.
But let's just talk about let's start with Linden and Holder. Because they both had fascinating episodes, and we see Sarah losing control really and for the first time losing control of the case. Mm-hmm. This is the first time that she hasn't been in total control steering the ship.
And part of it was like literally she lost control to the FBI.
They
literally actually took control of the case, and then part of it was that she just is losing herself in it.
She's losing herself in it, and she loses control of some of her own evidence, like her own evidence through the FBI, as we've just said, but also through the leak, which of course, the red herring is that Holder's money that he's accepting, that he's doing something dodgy to make cash on the side by feeding stuff to the press. They sewed that in just really seamlessly, right. and Sarah backs against the wall anyway because Rick's not calling her back. His assistant has turned
this is what
up.
I'm going to talk about. So his assistant, Emmy, this character, Emmy, we don't know anything about, obviously, but she's very passive-aggressive on the phone.
Wow.
She says...
I felt like a sister to me. It felt like family, but you definitely heard assistant?
Yes. Yes, I didn't think you'd be there on a Sunday. I think she's like, I'm helping him organize files.
Oh, okay.
So I had a feeling that it was an
yeah.
assistant type thing.
You're right.
Which I think is important if you want to just go into that whole, well, who's this girl to him?
Yeah.
And stuff. But... I don't want to go there because here's where I want to go. She said very passive-aggressively, she was like, yeah, well, he's just been so busy since he's been planning this wedding alone.
Yeah.
Shut the...
Yeah,
Who are you?
I know. That's a woman. That is a woman with investment in that man.
Exactly.
Right?
So then, Sarah didn't bite. She just went, okay, tell him I called. But they planted this moment right at the top, not just the stuff with Rick, that's very important, obviously, but additionally planted her at the computer looking at Jack's stuff.
Yep.
and then calling in saying, "Hey, it's okay, send that stuff over to my computer so I can see it."
Yep.
And looking through all the stuff on her home computer.
Yeah.
That's a very important plant that neither of us picked up on the relevance there. But
No, I didn't think of Jack at all.
I wouldn't have.
No, it was anyway. So
there's Holder, the money, the envelopes that were,
and then and because like the FBI have come along when they've broken in, they've broken and entered Holder and Lyndon. There's no warrant.
No.
And they've busted.
I like it. It's a little renegade.
They've compromised the integrity of an FBI.
Okay, or that.
There's that too.
It's a little bit crazy, or
investigation.
it's terribly illegal.
It's illegal, and so Oakes starts losing favor with her as well. The boss, the superintendent, commandant, or whatever of the cops. Mm-hmm. He, for the first time,
just call him a commandant.
Whatever. It just came out. There's plenty more offensive material coming out of this mouth in the next 20 to 30 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. I wasn't trying to suggest that he was a Nazi.
The propaganda master.
Anyway, so so after the photos are leaked, Oakes loses kind of faith with her for the first time as well, saying, you're supposed to have been looking after Holder. You haven't.
And maybe you need to move on.
Maybe you need to let this guy go to California. He actually said, is the beginnings of pushing her off the case altogether.
Well, and this is I had written about this because he asked her to leave, and at this point, she kind of has nowhere to go.
Yeah.
She doesn't know. She's in limbo. She doesn't have a house there. She's already sold it. That happened on day one.
Yeah.
She doesn't have a house there. She's sort of living on this boat, Reggie's boat. Doesn't know if she can go to California. And the other important thing is that she can't let go. And you're seeing that little glimpse of whatever that seed was that got planted in her at that other case.
In her old case. Yeah.
And I love too. They're just gonna drag this little piece out. It's been 8 episodes and we haven't had more than an inkling of what this little idea is, and I am dying to know.
But I mean, it was really like they really pulled her in two directions tonight because then in the midst of all of this pressure on her, she gets a bit more renegade, a bit more badass. She goes to the FBI. She snaps the photo. She gets Mitch to identify it.
Right.
So she knows she's got more evidence. Mm-hmm. So that's going on. And then as that's happening, she's the photos have been leaked, compromising which Mitch sees, and we'll talk about how that affects her a bit later on. And then this happens. This is exactly what I was about to talk about, where Mitch comes to her and has a crack at her for saying, "How could you let this happen?" and says, "You've done nothing."
I think she was being actually kind in that moment.
Mitch?
Yes. I mean, I think she was speaking to her stern words. Obviously, she was sort of like, "Look, you've God, what did she say to her?" I wish I had it written down because it was pretty intense.
But it finished with "You've done nothing."
It finished with "You've done nothing."
And then what was interesting is that literally in the scene just before, and this happened a couple of times, this sort of repetition in the dialogue with other sort of thematically developed ideas. Just before she'd been talking to Holder, saying,
"Go make yourself useful and do nothing."
And do nothing. They were all, and the whole thing about, Richmond at the same time is about they all feel like they haven't done enough.
Right
at this point, and we'll talk about how they all feel that in their own stories.
Well, that's Stonewalled. They're all kind of coming up against
Right, you've got nothing, and so Lyndon finds herself in her car, ready to smoke a cigarette.
Yes, and she's actually shown some severe emotion in this moment.
Yeah, more than we've ever seen.
This is like, and I don't mean to bring up another show, but I don't know if anybody watches The Good Wife, but they had a character recently who has literally never cracked a big smile or cry, no extreme emotions, and she cried on the last episode, and this is what this feels like, like you're seeing a chink in the armor a little bit, and it's so.
This was like when Stan broke down in the
right. Oh God.
I mean, although he's far more brooding, but
much more emotional.
Yeah, than Sarah, but so
he's also had more to be emotional about.
Sure.
So Sarah kind of is losing it in the car, but lo and behold, she pulls that cigarette up to her mouth, and what does she see instead? She sees Holder doing another one of his shady dealings, she thinks, and so he gets in the car with a man we recognize.
Yeah, from who we picked as perhaps a potential sponsor, and we were I'm happy to say 100% correct in this case as
Gil.
Yeah, Gil, who was his sponsor, and And Sarah follows him to an NA meeting where we find out he's just come up to 6 months clean.
Mm-hmm.
And he tells this amazing story of the gold coin.
Well, and he also says the key part before that, he says, which allows for that gold coin story to kind of sink in, is because it removes, literally in one sentence, he removes all suspicion that we had as, following Sarah around. Where he says, he's been holding my paycheck and he's been just doling out as much as I need. So he's
that's what all the money has been that he's been.
All the exchanges and the kind of shady stuff going on. Although, to be fair, he's a cop. If he was going to do something that shady, he might have done it a little bit more, discreetly. He was just like in the street and stuff in a lot of those cases, and she saw him. Yeah, but he does say to us, but they do have that moment together at the end where he says, "What you see is what you get." Right. Well, don't jump there yet. Sorry.
So
he's at the thing. So he's at the thing, and he says. So he removes all suspicion by going, he's been holding my paycheck, and Sarah, you can see Sarah because she's watching now through this kind of frosted glass, and she's sort of like, like you can see her go, God, I'm an asshole. Yeah. And then number two, then he tells that lovely story. Well, not lovely, but it is really moving about the stealing his nephew's coin to pay for drugs. And I just thought when he looked up after telling that story and saw the back of Sarah and obviously recognized her, I just couldn't help but feel like how devastating must that have been
to be exposed.
Yes. Oh my God, was he so exposed, and in a way that must have just been like, first of all, it was hard for him to tell that story, and then he thinks he's telling it to a bunch of people. First, his sponsor he trusts, and then a bunch of other people who are there anonymously, and all. It's kind of like mutually assured destruction. Yeah, I'll keep your secret, you keep mine. Yeah, and nobody. Yeah, so not to use a Cold War term, but they're all in the.
But you did. Yeah, you went ahead and did it.
I'm a nerd, and then he turns and sees someone from his life. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He turns and sees someone from his real life out there in the world where it's not safe, and it's not safe to talk about those things. Yeah. And God, my heart just fell. Just imagining what that would have been like in that kind of But
such an important it was such an important scene in the structure of the whole episode. It was such an important scene in the structure of the whole series. It was such an important scene for the relationship between Sarah and Holder, and we really see that if I can now jump toward to the end where they see each other. Jack has Sarah and Jack have had their fight, and I'll talk about this at the end, but everyone's fighting at this point. But they, in the midst of all that, they come together, and it in fact it seems like it's brought them closer.
Right, and so she sees that whole thing, and then she turns away to get the phone call. And what's amazing about that is how time kind of slowed down when he was doing his speech. They didn't cut away from him. They let him do that entire monologue just straight through. There weren't any cuts to other stuff going on, coming back.
Yep.
He did that whole monologue straight through, and he did it as an actor. You know what I mean? There was no, producers, commercial break here or speed this up here. It was just brilliant.
Yeah, and they really gave it space. I really appreciated that.
Yeah, and then it speeds up so quick right after that. Immediately she gets that phone call. Your son did whatever.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's where everything sort of cuts loose. And at the same time, whilst we're talking about it, that's at the same time that Richmond is in his parole hearing. And so not his parole hearing, the parole hearing of the woman who killed his wife whilst drunk driving. And she's pleading. What's so amazing is Holder finishes one of his closing statements is that I hope they forgive me, but whether they do or not, his sister and his nephew, it's none of my business. All that is my business is how I earn it from now on. It's all that I have control over.
So we have all of these moments. She finds out Jack. Then commercial break, and when we come back, we see Tom and God, who's that little Jamie, the assistant, Darren's assistant is talking to Tom, their benefactor, that kind of douchey younger guy who has a lot of money and wants Adams to lose.
Yeah.
Right, but it's important to talk about him because he's the one who brings that information to Darren right before he goes to the parole hearing.
Yeah, yeah.
So then he goes to his parole hearing. This woman is talking about Lily, his wife, of course, and that's when he gets a little feisty.
Yeah, yeah. So so Richmond obviously comes into the beginning of the episode with a lot of vigor, and he, we see a renewed kind of passion, and he's prepared to get a little bit dirty and get a little bit aggressive. But then, of course, because of these terrorism links that are appearing in the media,
he's nervous.
He's nervous. So Jamie goes on digging, and we have that amazing scene earlier on in the episode at the Ultimate Fighting Ring, and
right,
I
that's
loved,
what I mean with Tom.
Yeah, earlier in the episode, which has just the appropriate amount of dirt to it. Like, it was a very, it's a grimy Fight Club kind of venue, and these two guys are wrestling, and I loved his quote. I hate when they grapple like a couple of bitches, and
Did he say bitches? I thought he said girls.
Well, I wrote down bitches. So
apparently Paul was getting a little bit more feisty than other people.
If they said girls, it tells you something about what goes on in my mind.
That's great.
If they said bitches, it tells you something about the intensity of the writing.
And Jamie's perfect in that scene too, because he just, every time I see him, he leaves a bad taste in my mouth.
He's getting slimier and
so
slimier.
Slimy.
But I also that the guy playing the millionaire sort of entrepreneur,
Super slimy also.
Slimy as well, and has the right amount of dirt, and of course this kind of the fight is mirroring where the politics is going.
Yeah, and we already know he hates Adam, so immediately we know this conversation is about, okay, we're gonna take Adam down. And I love how Jamie's like, we got this PI on it, and like he's doing all this great stuff, and we're gonna, we have all this dirt, and the guy's like, you have nothing. He's like, no, but we will.
We will. He's like, I've got something, and which then of course comes to Richmond, and then Richmond says he'll think about it.
Right. But why? Can we go back to Tom? Why spill now? He says, I have something that could ruin him. So if you hate him so much, you hate this project he's developing.
He said, I've got scruples. I think perhaps he wanted to try and beat him fair. He wanted to try and beat him politically. Because how much dirt does he? He's probably got an awful lot of dirt himself. Who knows what their relationship is?
Right, but he said he had scruples. But why are they not?
Because now because Richmond has been such a pussy and has proved himself to be so weak so far. I think he feels like it's the last straw. I mean, that's what I'm interpreting it as.
Right.
Maybe it could have been more convincing. I'm not sure.
I just sort of feel like he's had this information, and when we find out what the information is, it's sort of like, okay, you could have, leaked that way earlier. Also, how come he's the only one that knows about this?
Well, men with money.
Sure. So anyway, he has this information. We don't know what it is. We don't find out what it is. We just hear Jamie, Gwen, and Darren talking about it. Gwen's adamant, we can't use this information. It's.
And Darren wants to think about it.
And it's dirty, and Darren wants to think about it. And Jamie is, again,
pushing it.
You're being too weak, etc.
But so then Darren goes to the parole hearing aforementioned and sits listening to this woman, and this scene comes right on the back of Holder's. In fact, one of his last lines is about forgiveness, and her first line was about, I don't know if you can forgive me, or I hope you can forgive me.
Again, that little couplet of Shakespearean.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is, I guess. I mean, Shakespeare montages scenes together like that. There's no doubt about it.
So
anyway, she's pleading for the forgiveness of the court and the forgiveness of Mr. Richmond, and he just sits there quietly and then goes off into a bathroom, checks that he's not being watched, which is a detail that I really appreciated, and then punches the mirror, and then we see him split into 100.
Right. It was like, oh, how appropriate. The many faces of Darren Richmond this week, because we are seeing a lot of different faces, and when they do reveal that, in fact, he's been paying, so that the Mayor Adams has been paying. Darren, sorry. So after the parole hearing,
yes, just the most interesting forgiveness line of that lady. Sorry, just to go back a split second. Forgiveness is not naturally human. She said, I don't think forgiveness is a naturally human thing to do, but I hope you can find it for me. He then goes and punches her. He then gets on the phone, punches the mirror, and says, "Send it out."
Yeah, he gets on the phone. He's super feisty. Send the story out. So the story breaks.
So what happened? Why? Because earlier on in this season, in the series, he has said, "I'll never she doesn't deserve forgiveness ever," and indicated that he would never forgive her. Like, he was very adamant about that when he's discussed this issue, in previous episodes. And I just wonder what happened for him in that moment.
I don't even know that it's necessarily about that woman. I think what happened in that in that moment with her is this feeling of because what it really is about control in terms of him and in terms of his campaign and his relationship with Adams, this element of control that goes back and forth. Who's controlling the campaign? Who's controlling the information and the facts and whatnot? And Adams has pulled the plug on this very important project to him. Mm-hmm. He goes into this thing and sees this other part of his life where he completely lost control of his fate, which was that he lost his wife, and is feeling really angry about it. And I think a bit like he wants to take action. He's not going to just roll over and let all these people walk over him again, including Adam. So he wants to take control back in his life and in his campaign, which is his life. I mean, you see, that's all he has. That he's really passionate about, and in that sense, like, Darren is a very forgivable character. You know?
Oh, he is. I just wonder what effect his understanding of forgiveness in that moment was. And how, because I'm sure, and what the direct relationship was between that and his action. His action
of like doing something super dirty that this person may never forgive him for.
Did he go, I don't forgive you, and you know, screw being Mr. Nice Guy if I'm going to be that, or did he go, I forgive you and I'm not going to be powerless in this anymore. I'm going to do what I need to do to take control. You know, because I
don't know, both of those
I see roots to both.
Well, I think here's where we find out. They break that story, the $1,500 apartment for the mistress, for Adam's mistress Janelle, and
we see her getting hassled.
We see her,
and we see his doubt,
and we don't see anything about Adam's reaction, because the first thing they did is they went straight to this poor girl's house, and then you see Darren's face, and that's what they show you for a solid 3 seconds of just like right on his face, and that's an interesting shot. You know, we were watching the news story, and all of a sudden the news story is secondhand to what we're seeing.
Just
on his face.
hearing her being hounded, her life being taken away from her in a way.
Yeah, totally just torn.
And he's watching it going, I just did this.
Yeah. But I don't know that I saw doubt on his face.
Well, at that moment I saw.
I think he knew that. I think he's just watching.
Doubt
what
maybe
the
is the wrong
was.
word. I just feel like I feel like there was a moment of him going, oh God, what have I done? Mm-hmm. Like not like I shouldn't have done it, but just taking it in.
Yeah.
And with maybe a little bit of old Darren Richmond going, ooh. But then the Darren Richmond we see staring out the window with Gwen watching him in the very final montage is a different Darren Richmond.
Right,
there's a steel to it. There's a coldness that has come in with the Seattle rain.
Oh,
beating.
Stop it. I knew you were going somewhere weird. You got that look on your face. You were going to say something stupid. No, I think I think you're right, though. There was an emotion playing across his face of like, what have I done to this girl's life? But I think there's also...
but then I think he accepts it as necessary collateral.
Necessary collateral, but I mean, also I think he has proven to be a pretty honest person, I guess you could say, to a fault maybe.
Absolutely,
been kind of his problem.
In terms of as a politician.
In terms of his career. So I think, there's got to be a part of him that kind of goes, well, she's sleeping with a married man, like... Yeah. Like you said, the collateral, it's kind of necessary damage. I'm sorry if I had to like tear your little world down, but your little world is kind of not super...
Well, yeah, and I mean, a sort of a mistress being bankrolled in a $1,500, pad, it doesn't compare to the...
Where do they live that $1,500 is a lot for a one-bedroom apartment?
Well, it looked like a 3-story terrace, or 2-story at least.
I know, right? I want to be like, bump it up a little.
Yeah.
Let's really give this story some juice.
Yeah, you want me to be a mistress, and shut up about it?
Let's
really?
Give her some juice.
But, compared to the Seattle, to the program that he's just lost, well, there's no comparison. So,
right.
But it's, there begins the slippery slope. So it will be interesting to see how far...
Right, and he's had dirty information. The first thing is the dirty information. The second thing is going to be some new ad he wants to shoot. Remember they were talking about that?
Yeah.
And that's what they had gone to Tom for initially, was to get money for the ad.
More money. So that...
That was Darren's...
That then happens. And then finally, the Larsons, who in the same way are really, we see them starting to implode more. Like they've all had their moments of implosion as individuals. I felt like the family started to implode tonight.
Well, I think it's just so fascinating because all these other things are going to move at a certain pace because it's day 8. But they've brought the Larsons with them on this, for the television show.
Yeah.
I feel like there is a lot going on for day 8 because what Stan does in day 8.
But Mitch calls him on it. And says it's only been a week.
Right. But that is about at minute like 55. She says it's only been a week, and that's after he's taken her room down and stuff. And I feel like the entire episode you could have if you didn't have written down on a piece of paper in front of you like I did day 8, you could totally have lost yourself in the idea that it's been months and that this woman has kind of just lost it.
Yeah.
But it has been 8 days. I mean, and her daughter was murdered, and these pictures show up on the television for everyone to see her poor naked daughter drowned.
Yeah.
I mean, that is a lot, and for someone to come in and then take her room apart. I mean, not that they need to build a shrine.
But that's also. But you got to ask, where's Stan coming from? He has felt completely emasculated by this entire incident.
Mm-hmm.
He feels like he feels like he has no control and that he's done nothing because there is nothing he can do. There is nothing left.
Well, that's not true that there's nothing he could do.
Well, they flirted with that.
They did.
Of course, and now Mitch is starting to flirt with that as she sort of
she's getting a little shady, and they said some really hurtful things to each other.
But I think that it was just about doing something to move forward or doing something, and so he packed up her room. But then, yes,
I understand it was symbolic of like what.
Yes, just trying to do something.
The mom sitting in that room is symbolic of her, sort of sitting in this moment of just agony.
Yeah.
That he felt like she's not here anymore. We've got to she doesn't need a bedroom.
Well, but that's really important that you say that because, I mean, that was really set up in the early stages of the episode where it was like Mitch was MIA.
Right.
Stan's in there cooking the breakfast. The kids are breaking stuff. Terry's coming in. She gets distracted, by the news, and the boys are left in the car with it running inside the garage. And the way that that Terry told Stan, you almost felt like there could be this like post traumatic stress sort of suicide or a murder of the other kids. Like it was as if Stan like almost thought like for a second, what did she intend to do it? Is she really losing her mind?
See, but I expected him just to kind of blow up at her, and then I was going to be upset about it, and he didn't. So it was like, okay, good.
Yeah,
I thought he was going to kind of blow up at her. I thought it was an honest mistake.
Yeah, no, it absolutely was. It was completely an honest mistake.
Yeah,
but just the way when Terry told him.
Yeah.
And the way that she just said...
I don't want you to be mad at her.
I don't want you to be mad at her. Yeah, that kind of... I guess that... But the way that she said it was just as if she had just walked away as opposed to forgotten about them.
Right. The reality, though, of losing his 2 kids is so, like, real and, the reality of, you go, God, I could have been killed, or I almost got in a car accident and could have been killed. You know what I mean? You have that kind of moment of,
Yeah.
But for him, it's like, she almost killed your boys. Oh, God.
Yeah.
Like that, just that feeling of, I mean, it's just so present for him. And then...
there was that interesting moment between the two of them before they had the discussion, Terry and Stan, where I was wondering if something was going to come up about Terry and, what happened at the wake. And that sort of that thing about her that we're still waiting to find out what the truth is. If that was her earlier in the season,
I think it was
with the young kid. I'm starting to doubt it now that was her because I'm sure Stan would have said something by now.
No,
but there is something else going on between Terry and that kid's dad for whatever happened.
The funeral was only 2 days ago though for them.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like we're watching this in super slow-mo.
Yeah. Maybe that's just...
The other thing is that they were in that room after she took her room apart, and Mitch says they're gonna arrest the teacher soon.
Yeah, she's really honing in on the teacher.
Yeah, she's gonna... That made me nervous in the same way that...
it makes me really nervous.
His buddy at the garage makes me nervous.
Yeah.
The way that they kind of almost egg him on a little. Like, I don't know, they set this Stan character up to have had this very dark past, and it sort of feels like everybody's watching him and trying to get him to put his finger back on that trigger, like everyone wants him to be the henchman again. And I think it's just like a test of like how close is he going to get? How close is he going to get? And is it actually going to go down?
Yeah.
So anyway, they said some really strict things.
Nasty thing. Let's start playing the blame game.
Yeah. She said, you let her stay home. And then
that weekend
that she died.
Yeah.
And he said, well, maybe she wouldn't hide things from us if you weren't so strict.
Yeah. And this is at the point really when the episode goes into overdrive. We're getting really close to the percussion coming in under the end and driving us home.
I was just going to say that the music starts again right when they say that to each other. You know, that though, the two of them kind of blaming each other and sort of getting in that felt normal to me. Like that felt like I've been waiting for that moment.
Yeah, it had to happen at some point. It's horrible, but it had to come.
I thought it was premature to have that moment of them kind of almost sleeping together before this.
But it's just they handled it correctly because they didn't. It was never going to work. Just interestingly, on the here in the studio, we're at the moment where on the TV where Richmond just punches the mirror, and this to me is the shattering of. And
is that his wedding band?
Yeah. This is the shattering of what has been going on inside everyone in the episode at this moment. Everything kind of from here we cut to the news where. We're hearing about violence and vandalism is on the increase after the link between the terrorism, potential terrorism plot or investigations and Ahmed, and so we're seeing. It is really Shakespearean, actually, because, and I hate to say this, but in the way that in a Shakespearean play, when stuff starts going wonky in Macbeth or Hamlet, the natural order of things is disturbed, and you start seeing stuff go wrong in society everywhere. And we see in shots of next week's episode vandalism, racist hate sort of stuff about Muslims, whatever.
Well, let's finish this up, and then we'll get into predictions.
I know, but it's just the point is that we're seeing it on the news, that it's spreading to the world around them. Where then Richmond's like, release it to the press. Jack and Sarah have their fight about the stuff being leaked. Mitch and Stan play the blame game. The mayor's mistress is caught on TV. Richmond takes that in. Lyndon and Holder have their moment coming together, and we get our little bit of narrative hook for next week, where he's like, I've tapped Ahmed's phone.
Well,
Let's go and listen.
And that's what he's been doing when he was being, put aside,
right.
kicked aside like a lapdog.
Like a lapdog, yeah. Mitch, and then Mitch starts putting together, but this is still going further into the final montage. Mitch starts putting Rosie's room, unpacking it and putting stuff back up on the walls. And then Holder and then they get the phone call.
Putting her back together. So then they get the phone call where we see Chrissy, Amber, watching Ahmed on the phone and he says something in Arabic, and then he says, the passports will be arriving tomorrow. Don't worry about the police. They don't know anything.
So it could just be...
The music said it's like high point there, the drum beat going.
Yeah. And it sounds to me like someone who was wanting to skip the country, right?
Yeah, so we know now that this whatever this plot they think is going on has to do with passports, etc. So then hearing Ahmed say passports, we immediately tie those two things together and go, okay, so this does have something to do with him. It could be unrelated though, if they want to, boot that terrorist thing out and have it just be a minor distraction. Do we have any?
I really do. I really am interested in what you mentioned about trafficking.
Oh, yeah.
Human trafficking.
Well, what she said, though, are the passports, are they Caucasian girls? And the people, the FBI, this was at the meeting that we didn't discuss, where Sarah's sort of like just totally overrun by these guys, where she says, are they Caucasian girls? And they say, no, they aren't really Caucasian girls. They're mostly not. And then she also says, they're like, do you have any more information? And she goes, no, you have everything.
You have everything of mine.
And they also say, well, we don't want to tell you anymore because they're worried about the leak. Yep. Turns out the leak's her son.
And so the fact that they're not all Caucasian girls would indicate that it was more potentially a terrorist thing, because Caucasian girls are who are going to be trafficked out to Asia, whatever.
Right.
Wherever that, it all happens here in Los Angeles as well. But everywhere.
Caucasian girls can just be trafficked from one state to the next within the United States. It doesn't matter, and anybody can.
But plenty of foreign girls as well, so it could work both ways. So who knows? But Jeepers, what an engrossing, superb.
Stop it! Did you just say Jeepers?
Did I?
Yes.
I don't know. Did I? What's wrong with Jeepers?
How could we possibly have a conversation about something so serious with you using the word Jeepers?
Jeepers,
I don't know.
Creepers, wow, kids. It was an amazing...
Why don't you go check on Wally and the Beeve, Miss Cleaver? Christ.
Well, will you agree that it was an extraordinarily...
Yes, can we talk...
Oh,
yes.
what?
No.
What do you want to talk about?
I want to talk about predictions for next week.
All right, well,
'cause
let's
I'm
take a
excited about
commercial
it.
break. We'll come back and we'll do predictions.
Okay.
Want to find out what the AfterBuzz is about?
Janice is a drama queen.
This is the divide that is going to carry the series.
Give us a call. 424-256-1729. 424-256-1729.
It's television, and they want it to be as dramatic as possible.
I mean, it's Shakespearean.
You never know what goes on behind closed doors.
Find out why AfterBuzz TV is the #1 source for after-show content.
Now, in the eyes of Jimmy, Nucky is a villain.
424-256-1729. 424-256-1729.
I mean, who would you guys rather hear that from? Your husband or your best friend?
The wig will come out.
When the TV show is over, get your AfterBuzz on.
Yo, we're back. Let's not
He's
talk
just trying to
about...
pull it back from every generation. He's going to try and use a little bit of lingo.
Before
from
we
every
wrap things
generation.
up tonight, let's just have a quick talk about what we think is going to happen next week. Katie, you seem to have ideas.
Well, I'm just very excited about it. We obviously see Amber goes to the cops.
Yes. Yeah,
So-
because she's now suspecting her own husband.
Well, here's the thing. I'm not sure it's necessarily about her suspecting him of murder.
No, it's not about the murder. It's
No.
about something that he and Muhammad are obviously up
Right.
to, because that's who he was talking about.
Right.
And we did see that, that moment where Sarah has a gun out on someone, and you and I we paused it to try and find out who it was. It looked like the back of the head of someone we hadn't seen before. So my guess is it's Muhammad.
I don't know. It looked like a light-haired guy though, and you don't picture.
It was a shaved head. It was a
Yeah.
shaved head, and I think it was Muhammad.
Regardless,
That is my prediction.
Okay. So you heard it here first. Here's the thing though about Chrissy going to the cops.
AfterBuzz
That's
TV
Amber.
exclusive.
I mean Amber.
Thanks, Jesse.
Sorry, Amber going to the cops. Ahmed really messed up here. Bennett, I mean.
Oh,
he really
he's-
messed up here
yeah.
because he's pushing her away. He was like, yelling at her when he was
Yeah.
in the house. He needs
Because he's
to-
not allowed. We didn't talk about it. He's got kicked out of school, basically, as
Right,
well.
so he's not supposed to be going to work. Although we do see that he goes back to the
Yeah,
school
yeah.
at some point. He goes back to the school.
Yeah.
Chrissy, Amber, I mean, he's pushing her away.
Yeah.
He's getting mad at her and stuff, and he really needs to kind of pull her close. Because,
Well, you see, here's the thing. I think that she's expendable to him. I know that she's carrying his kid, but I think
Yeah.
that I don't think he really
he's
loves her
obviously
that
a
much.
shady weirdo. Regardless of killing or passports or any of this talk, it could totally turn out to be legit and legal, and he could go back to teaching. But I don't think he should because he's obviously a creep. And that's my opinion of this man.
Yeah, no, he's
He's
there's
creepy.
something dodgy about him.
The other thing that happens is we see that Mitch is hot on the trail of this teacher. She really is not happy about what they've been doing. She doesn't think
She has a crack at Stan, doesn't she?
She says, "This guy killed our daughter, and you let him go," which shows us how upset she was. The episode when Stan disappeared with this guy. She was upset, but maybe somewhere in there she was hoping that Stan would take matters into his own hands. They weren't doing anything.
Well, I think all she cares about is.
Or she's been pushed to that point. At least
Yeah,
at
well,
this-
she just needs to focus on someone, and it's about responsibility. You know, I mean, that's what this whole episode is about. Responsibility, blame, acceptance, forgiveness.
That's a lot of.
Those 4 things. It was. It's true.
It's also about Nazism, as we.
No.
Okay, listen though. She did say also, and I think this goes back to my day 8 rantings.
Yes.
She says to Sarah, how she's like, and you haven't done anything. You haven't caught the guy.
Yeah.
She's like, he's still out there. You haven't caught him. It's been 8 days. I mean, I know every day the person gets farther and farther away. Like it gets less likely
that
it'll be solved.
Yeah.
But I still feel like some of this stuff takes time. You really got to pin someone down. What we're also going to see a lot of Mayor Adams pushing the murder issue, trying to work really hard to take the spotlight off himself and connect Darren with this murder.
Yep.
In any way he can, because you see that Darren's office has been vandalized at this point.
Oh yes.
It looks like.
And then when Ahmed's in school, we see Killer behind him. So and then in Darren's office it says "Kill the Muslims."
Right.
So we can see, like, I don't know, there's the way that, I don't know, it's coming together.
There's also, I'm hoping at least, I'm hoping that they're going to, since I really don't believe that it's Bennett.
No, neither do I.
You know, it's just too soon to have really pinned it on this person, but they're throwing a lot of information about him at us, making him look very suspicious. But I'm really looking forward to seeing some more little seeds planted about who these other people are in Stan's life.
Yeah.
You know? And in you know.
Yeah, that's the only thing I need. I want more of right now. But other potential suspects. Because I feel like Ahmed is so obviously the obvious one.
So obviously not it.
Yeah, that it's just not it. And I'm just wondering who could it be that was chasing her through those woods?
Right.
I need to, you know.
Well, you know what's lovely about this show is not a lot of recognizable faces in terms of the actors.
Yeah.
And on a lot of shows, I watch an episode of Criminal Minds, and the first recognizable person I see, I go, that person did it. Whatever it is, they'll go off and do other, subsidiary characters, but they'll always come back.
Yeah.
They'll always come back to the guy, the guest star.
Yep.
And then it's like, that guy's guilty or that guy is...
So they have the most screen time.
Right.
Which is why they booked them. Yep.
Okay, not to get weird actory, but legitimately, not a lot of familiar faces. I don't feel a weight of any of these people in terms of like how much time they're going to get in front of this camera.
Yep. Absolutely.
So I think that's really, really good. But I do want to see those seeds.
Yeah, well, I'm sure that they'll give them to us. And
we're going to see Holder talking to the judge.
Yes.
That he said he's really close with.
Oh, yeah.
If you don't sign this.
With the tapping.
If you don't sign this, Rosie Larson's killer goes free.
Yeah, and obviously because, and that's what becomes apparent as well with the FBI getting involved, is that this case, and why it is so important to solve it soon, because it could get taken away from them.
Yep.
Literally taken away from them.
It already has been.
And
that's what Oak said. He was sort of like, it's out of our hands. It's not our case anymore. And Sarah obviously cannot handle that because neither can Holder apparently, because he went behind everybody's back and did this tap thing because he's still invested.
Yeah. And then they walk free,
But we'll find out what kind of little, thing is developing between these two characters.
I feel like these two are now on the same page.
Sorry, Sarah and Stephen.
Yeah, they're on the same page now. I think they're real. This is them as a team. He drives now. It's interesting. He says, "I'm going to take the wheel," and that's a new development. And I think that's going to definitely their case solving kind of success is going to move up exponentially.
But do you think we're going to see a little bit of romantic interaction between the two of these characters? Are they setting it up for that?
At this point, I don't think so. To me, it feels work related.
I don't know. I feel like they might connect now that she's sort of been let in on, and he says, "What you see is what you get." And he realizes he's exposed, and she knows it, and now it's sort of
I don't know. It feels
they're very vulnerable together.
They are, but
he knows a lot about her situation too, because Rick. All her dealings with Rick.
I don't know. We'll see.
And he always talks about Jack. What's up with the little man?
Certainly, anything's possible. There's no doubt about it.
So
I'm not seeing it right now, but we will. I will watch.
It might detract from the actual.
That I feel it would be.
It's not like they're terrorists or anything. They're throwing a random terrorist plot in.
No, that's right.
They wouldn't do that on this show.
Anyway, just a super episode. Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to an end of the end of AfterBuzz TV tonight for The Killing, Season 1, Episode 8, Day 8, Stonewalled. Thank you so much, Katie. Thanks very much, DJ Jess. Yes, I'm Paul Ashton. You've been watching on Ustream or listening to on iTunes and other podcast favorite places to get podcasts.
Tell your friends.
Tell your friends about AfterBuzz. We're here every week. Thanks very much for watching or listening. And feel free to call in next week too. Au revoir.
From producers Kevin Undergaro and Phil Svitek, engineer DJ Jesse Janity, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. If you have questions or comments, be sure to buzz us at info@AfterBuzzTV.com. And you can find us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter by searching for AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
Buzz you later, sorry.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.